So on a scale of 1 to 10, how good do I look with my glasses on? 1 being somebody's auntie, or 10 being sexy librarian? Okay, so welcome to or back to my channel. My name is Toch, and on this channel I make content about the software development industry, particularly through video reviews of different software development packages, libraries, and services, and also through general tips and tricks based on my personal experiences. But also I want to start a new sub-series of videos that I do on this channel, which this is going to be the first of, and it's basically story time slash how I built that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a project which I've done in the past and basically just describe the story of how I went about building it. So for this pilot video, we're gonna go way back. Not way back to the beginning, but pretty close to. We are gonna go all the way back to my first ever freelance contract that I did. So I was living in California at the time, and this was sometime in June 2019. So I was living with a bunch of other dudes at the time, and we called it the startup house because each of us in there had our own different hustles that we were trying to work on at the time. But I think a more accurate name for it would have been the trap house because, you know, we were like sleeping on air mattresses, you know, eating fast food for lunch, breakfast, dinner. But all that is a story for another time. Right now, we're going to focus on my first freelance contract that I did during this period. So like I said, I was working on my first startup at the time, so I was making absolutely zero money. So obviously I was looking for ways to try and get some cash in hand to survive or to live more or less. So I think I already had an Upwork account by this period, so I decided to go ahead and just, you know, go to their little job search page and see what I could find. To be honest, I'm not sure if I actually searched for the job or if I was invited by the client, but regardless, some way somehow the client and I ended up crossing paths and talking about the job and doing like the whole interview process they have on Upwork. So the client's project was pretty much a PHP file which had 2 different iframes inside of it, and in each of these iframes he was trying to access some APIs that did something. I can't remember exactly what it did, but it was some kind of geomap type thing. So what he pretty much wanted was he wanted to be able to input a query through some kind of text input on his original PHP project or PHP page, and he wanted to have that input along with his API key be used to make a query on each of those 2 sites that were in the iframes to be able to get the data that he wanted. So keep in mind that at this point in my career, I had never ever written a single line of professional PHP code, and even till today PHP is certainly not in my set of most proficient programming languages. So that was certainly very intimidating for me, and I even considered not taking the project for that reason. But then I thought to myself, you know, at the time and still now, I had very solid HTML and CSS skills, and I also have very strong general programming fundamentals. And when you include the fact that I was pretty much broke as hell at this point, I just thought to myself, you know what, I'm just gonna have to shoot my shot here and see what happens. So I accepted the job, and then the client sent over his source code files, and then I downloaded PHP on my system so that I could be able to serve the applications. Then I spent some time just, you know, looking through the source code, looking at it in the web, and just trying to get a better understanding of exactly what I needed to do. And then I did something pretty ballsy, especially for a beginner at the time, and I tried to negotiate for a price increase on the contract. So I think in the beginning he initially budgeted $60 for it, and after looking through the files I went with a counter offer of 75. So not a huge increase, but you know, for a beginner that's certainly on the more brave side, the more courageous side, I would say. And I'm not sure exactly how I communicated the increase with him, but I'm sure it was good enough that he ended up agreeing with it. We negotiated the contract for 75 instead of the original 60 that he had originally intended. So after we came to an agreement, I got right to work, and I believe what I ended up doing was I set it up in a way where obviously whatever the user inputs in the search bar / text input, and when they hit run or send or whatever it was, I don't really remember, I took the contents of that search bar / input, and then I appended it to the URL as query params based on the documentation for the service that he was using. So I appended it onto the URL along with the API key for the service. I think each iframe made a slightly different query, so it was slightly different URL params for each of those. I did that and it pretty much ended up working. I'd say it probably took me anywhere from 2 to 3 hours to complete the project, but in the end it was a success. There weren't too many revisions back and forth. It was a pretty straightforward task. He just said, hey, here's the issue, and I provided him with a working solution for it. And we were both happy. He ended up paying me, and I sent him over the source code back as part of the agreement. And yeah, that was how my first ever freelance contract went. It was pretty good. I was proud of myself. Yeah. And then after, we both gave each other the 5-star reviews, which was really, really helpful for me, because when it comes to freelancing, client reviews are as good as gold pretty much. They're the best. So I also want to point out that while I did this in this instant, I try never to make a habit of accepting contracts that I'm not 100% certain that I can deliver. But in the end, it still worked out, mainly because my programming fundamentals are strong enough that at the time, JavaScript was like my most, and still is, my most proficient language. And a lot of the fundamentals of programming carry over across different languages, right? So even though I didn't have much experience with PHP, I was still able to get in there and, just figure things out. So I guess if there was one lesson to be learned, is that as long as you have a solid foundation of the fundamentals, and this could also apply to other fields than just programming, but as long as you have a very solid foundation, you can pretty much take it and apply it to different situations, different languages, etc., etc. But I just want to reiterate once again, for any potential clients that might be watching this video, if I'm not 100% certain that I can deliver on whatever it is that you're looking for, I won't be accepting or taking the contracts. It's not something I do anymore. There you have it. That was the story of my first ever freelance contract. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you liked it and you want to see more stuff like it, or some of the other things that I do on my channel, hit that subscribe button. And if you're a potential client, you have a project that you need doing, I strongly suggest that you reach out. My specialty is web development / cross-platform or hybrid mobile app development, but pretty much anything that has to do with JavaScript on any platform, I'm your guy. So if you or anybody is interested in building a website, a web app, a cross-platform Android and iOS app, my contact information is in the description of this video. That being said, thank you so much for watching. I will see you next time. Have a good one.